As I gazed at the white ceiling of the hospital room, I gently caressed my swollen belly. My name is Jessica. I am 30 years old this year. I met my husband, William, through work. We worked on a project together and were drawn to each other. William is kind-hearted and thoughtful, always there to support me. After getting married, we wanted children immediately but struggled to conceive. We decided on fertility treatments, facing many trials and failures. There were tears, but William always encouraged me, saying, "As long as we're together, we're happy." Finally blessed with this little life, after a long journey, I am now ready to embrace a new life with the child growing inside me. Each movement in my belly fills me with love and joy. "We'll meet you soon," I whisper to my belly, and it's as if in response, I feel a gentle kick. I smile at the sensation. Pregnancy has not been easy, but having my husband William by my side has allowed me to feel secure. He has adjusted his work to be as close to me as possible. Today he rushed from work when he heard I was in labor. As he looked at me worriedly, he asked about my condition. "Jessica, it's okay, it's almost time." My husband William said, sitting beside me and gently holding my hand. As labor pains came, I tried to breathe through the pain, which made it hard to breathe. Sweat formed on my forehead, and I could feel the tension throughout my body. Enduring the anxiety and pain, I found a bit of comfort in my husband's warmth. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes to prepare for the next wave. Suddenly, my stepmother, Daniela, called. "Hello." "Oh, Jessica, how are you feeling?" Daniela's voice was as refined and calm as ever. "It seems labor has started. What's the matter?" "Yes, of course. There's something I need to tell you." "A report?" "I've taken out a loan in your name. It was necessary for Brittany's study abroad." I gasped. "Excuse me? What did you just say?" "Well, she needed the funds for her future. You're about to have a child, and you'll need money, right? So, I thought I should help out the family a bit beforehand." "Family? Which right does she have to speak of family now?" Anger welled up inside me. "Such. How could you?" I asked, trembling. "Jessica, don't worry. I plan to help with the repayment, and I won't trouble you. I've already handled the paperwork." Daniela assured me, seeming pleased with herself. I tightened my grip on my smartphone. "But why would you do something like that without my knowledge?" "I wasn't informed at all." "Why would you make such a unilateral decision?" I asked, my voice fearful. Daniela seemed to laugh satisfactorily. "Well, you have a husband, William, and you're financially stable. Using your name, the credit check went smoothly, so please understand, all right?" She explained and then hung up. I stared at my phone and immediately checked the recording. Daniela's voice was clear. "Jessica, what's wrong?" William noticed something was off by looking at my face. "Daniela did it," I revealed. William's expression hardened. "She used your name without permission?" "Yes, but I've got the evidence. Can you contact the lawyer?" I handed him my phone. He checked the screen, quickly tapped the lawyer's number, and pressed the call button. "Hello, Jessica." The lawyer responds with a calm and composed voice. "Hello, this is Jessica's husband, William." I recorded it. Daniela clearly stated that she took out a loan in Jessica's name. He informed the lawyer, Richard. "Understood. Let's proceed immediately. We've prepared the legal steps beforehand. We'll notify the financial institutions and consider a fraud charge." The lawyer, Richard, responded calmly. William looked at me and nodded firmly. "Please do," he said. I felt a bit relieved hearing those words. I had been waiting for this moment for months. It was a while ago that I last visited my family home. After my father passed away, I had kept my distance from my family home. The reason was simple. Daniela, my stepmother, and her daughter, Brittany, did not treat me like family. They entered my life when I was 15 years old. My mother had died of illness, and before I could even grieve, My father remarried Daniela 6 months later. She was a beautiful woman with an elegant demeanor and a kind smile, which initially charmed me. However, that was just a facade she showed to the outside world. My stepmother Daniela had a 13-year-old daughter, Brittany. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, resembling a princess from a movie. But I quickly realized that Daniela truly loved only her own daughter. In front of my father, she played the kind stepmother, but gradually they started treating me as an unwanted presence in the house. As soon as my father passed away, their attitude completely changed. "Jessica, you're an adult now. Don't rely on your family home anymore. With your father gone, this is now our house," they declared. At that moment, I realized I had become a complete outsider. Still, I decided to visit my family home after a long while to collect my father's belongings. I only learned through a lawyer named Richard after his death that his cherished possessions like watches, family photos, and letters were still at the house. Daniela had moved forward with the inheritance proceedings without informing me. I had avoided meeting her directly, but I was determined to reclaim these precious mementos. The family home felt cold when I stepped inside after so long. Despite once living there as a family, it no longer felt like my place. When I entered the living room, Daniela was sitting on the sofa, elegantly sipping tea. Beside her, Brittany was boredly playing with her phone. "It's been a while, Jessica. What do you want?" Daniela looked at me briefly, her voice showing little interest. "I've come to collect my dad's belongings. I heard the watches, family photos, and letters are still here," I informed her. Daniela shrugged in annoyance, and Brittany snorted. "Belongings? We've already disposed of that junk." I was momentarily speechless. "Disposed of? What are you talking about? Why keep old photos and letters? We sold the watch to an antique shop. There was no reason to keep anything for you, Jessica." Hearing Daniela speak in such a nonchalant tone filled me with rising anger. Those were things my dad cherished. How could you just do that? "How? I manage this house. Besides, you're no longer part of this home, are you?" Seeing the cold smiles on Daniela and Brittany's faces, I was stunned. Were they really willing to trample over my father's memories? At that moment, something became clear in my mind. I no longer needed to share any familial affection with these people. I was here to reclaim what was mine. I let out a deep breath and relaxed my shoulders. Fine. I'm leaving. Realizing that talking to them was a waste of time, I headed towards the entrance. There was no reason for me to stay any longer. Although I was furious that my father's possessions had been disposed of, I knew arguing with them was pointless. As I was putting on my shoes at the entrance, I vowed never to return to this house. But just then, I overheard something. "Hey, Mom, what's happening with the loan under Jessica's name?" Brittany's casual voice echoed in the hallway. What did she just say? I paused, restraining my movements. Pretending to tie my shoes, I listened intently. "Brittany, keep your voice down." Daniela chided her in a low tone, her voice tinged with urgency. "But you're going to use that money to send me abroad, right? We need to hurry or the approval will take time." "That's why I told you I'm handling it. We're proceeding without letting Jessica notice." "Approval? Under my name?" It clicked in my mind. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Daniela and Brittany were indeed planning to take out a loan under my name. My heart pounded furiously. I wanted to confront them immediately, but that would leave me without evidence. I quickly took out my smartphone and started the recording app. Daniela's calm voice continued. "Jessica is pregnant and distracted. Even if she sees the documents, she'll likely sign without checking. Plus, her husband seems too busy to manage their finances." "True. She's kind of scatterbrained, isn't she?" I could hear Brittany chuckling softly in the background. "So, we'll take out the entire study abroad loan under Jessica's name. By the time she notices, payments will already have started." This was the lowest of the low. At this point, I was convinced. They were truly planning to exploit my life. But now I had the conclusive evidence I needed. I confirmed the recording was securely saved, then quietly slipped my smartphone back into my bag. "Oh, okay. Understood," I said, as if nothing had happened, standing up and finishing tying my shoes. Daniela and Brittany continued their conversation in the living room, unaware that I was still at the entrance. I lightly touched the doorknob and took a quiet breath. Currently, my top priority is to leave here unnoticed. I carefully open the door without making any unnecessary noise. I step outside without looking back even once. The cold air brushes against my skin, and finally the tension begins to melt away. I will never forgive them. I murmur quietly as I close the door. Without hesitation, I pull out my smartphone and dial my lawyer Richard's number. I then submit the recorded data to my lawyer Richard. He frowns deeply upon hearing it, acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, and immediately prepares to take legal action. Although I feel frustrated, I have set up the minimum necessary defenses. Since overhearing their conversation that day, I never intended to remain just a victim. I had secured solid evidence and, together with my lawyer Richard, prepared to strike back whenever necessary. After that, I successfully gave birth. Raising a child for the first time was more challenging than I had imagined. Waking up frequently to the sound of crying at night and constantly busy with feeding and changing diapers. Yet, whenever I watched my baby sleep peacefully in my arms, all the fatigue seemed to vanish. "Are you okay? Why don't you take a break?" My husband, William, suggests kindly as he prepares some milk in the kitchen. "Thank you, but I'm fine. You have work too, so don't overdo it," I respond, even though he looks at me with concern. Having him by my side, I can face any situation. However, I knew that there were still unresolved issues lurking in my mind. And soon, they would become a reality that I had to confront. A few days later, while I was quietly reading a book at home, my phone vibrated. It's Daniela. Everything is going according to my plan. Yet now I must pretend to be oblivious. I press the call button. "Hello." "Jessica, listen to me." Daniela's voice is clearly irritated. It seems she is panicked because things haven't gone as planned. What happened?" I ask, feigning concern. "I told you I had taken out a loan in your name, but it failed." While secretly smirking inside, I continue to feign ignorance. "Failed? What do you mean?" "The application was approved. All that was left was the final confirmation to finalize the contract, but it was suddenly canceled." Daniela's voice was shaking with anger. "Jessica, did you do something?" "Me? I haven't done anything," I lied, feeling triumphant inside. In fact, I had already taken measures through my lawyer Richard to alert the financial institutions. If any suspicious loans were attempted under my name, a warning would be issued immediately, and the contract would be automatically voided. Daniela was unaware of this. That's why the approval was blocked before it could be finalized. "Are you sure you didn't do anything?" "Yes." "I didn't know anything about this. But what does that mean? It was approved and then suddenly it's invalid?" I asked, feigning surprise, and Daniela seems to have gotten even more frustrated. "Yes, what's going on? It seems like there's some special restriction on your credit information, and the process can't be done without the actual person. I wasn't expecting this." That's the trap I set. I sighed softly, still pretending to be confused. "I just gave birth, so I won't be able to do much for a while. Sorry. Why don't you or Brittany take out the loan in your own names?" Damn it. Daniela ignored my suggestion and clicked her tongue in annoyance. The moment the call ended, I quietly placed my phone on the table and looked up at the ceiling. "It's over, Daniela." My name was protected, and Daniela's plans were completely thwarted. I smiled slightly and quietly closed my eyes. About a month after giving birth, I receive a call from my lawyer, Richard. "Jessica, the investigation results are in." Regarding your father's estate, it has almost been used up by Daniela." I knew it. My certainty turned into anger. The estate should have been yours to inherit. However, she used illegal means to divert everything for herself and her daughter, Richard explained. Illegal means? Yes. After your father passed away, she should have conducted the official estate division proceedings. Instead, Daniela used forged documents to take control of all the assets. She then moved the funds through multiple accounts. Daniela had anticipated that I wouldn't verify the details of the estate and took everything for herself. Unfortunately, a significant amount has already been spent. However, there's a possibility to recover some of it through legal action, Richard advised. Without hesitation, I responded. I will sue my stepmother Daniela and stepsister Brittany. Days later, I found myself facing Daniela directly. William sat beside me, and our lawyer Richard was also present, while Daniela and Brittany maintained their usual composed demeanor. "You're making too much of this," Daniela said with a smile. "Jessica, we're family. Shouldn't we help each other? I used Dad's inheritance for everyone's benefit." "For everyone? You mean you and Brittany, right?" I retorted coldly, and Brittany shrugged lightly. "Why fuss over such details? You're living a wealthy life anyway. It wouldn't hurt you to help us out a bit." "Help you? Don't joke with me." I leaned forward on the table, fixing them with a steady gaze. "I'm here to protect what my father left behind, not to be exploited by you." "But aren't we family?" Daniela's sugary voice echoed, but I was no longer fooled. "You are not my family. People who deceive and use their family have no place in my life," I declared firmly, seeing Daniela's expression stiffen. "I thought we could settle this through discussion, but it seems impossible. William, let's go," I said, standing up. William immediately followed. "Jessica, wait," Daniela called out in a panicked voice. "Are you serious about the lawsuit?" I turned back and said quietly, "Yes, I'm serious." Weeks later, I formally filed the lawsuit. William was fully supportive, helping the legal team gather all the evidence. We had proof of Daniela's illegal acquisition of the inheritance, bank transaction records, and forged documents. There was no escaping the truth for them now. Preparing for the trial amidst parenting was tough, but strangely, my heart felt lighter. "William, thank you so much," I said one evening, and he gently held my hand. "What are you talking about? We're family, aren't we?" I was reminded once again of what true family meant. As I watched my son sleep, I felt determined. I was going to protect my life and what my father had left behind. It was time to settle this in court. On the day of the trial, I stood in the courtroom with my lawyer Richard. Daniela and Brittany were seated at the defendant's table. The confidence they once had was gone. Now, they looked worried and anxious. Daniela tried to appear composed, but her fingertips nervously tapped on the desk. Brittany kept her eyes down, clearly unable to hide her irritation as she shifted in her seat. William watched me from the spectators' gallery, his steady gaze giving me silent strength. "We will now begin the hearing," the judge announced. I took a deep breath, ready to end everything. Lawyer Richard started presenting the evidence calmly. In this case, it has been clearly demonstrated that defendant Daniela Johnson illegally acquired the estate of the deceased, Thomas Johnson, and attempted to take out illegal loans under the plaintiff's name. He handed a document to the judge. "This is a copy of the document the defendant submitted to the bank. It's clear that the plaintiff's signature was forged, and the loan application was made without her consent. Furthermore, this audio evidence records the defendant admitting to attempting to take out loans using the plaintiff's name." The courtroom played Daniela and Brittany's conversation. "If we use Jessica's name, she has good credit, and if we do it right, she won't notice. She's kind of naive, isn't she? She won't realize what's happening." Their dismissive laughter stirred unrest among the spectators. The judge coughed lightly, calling for silence. This audio was recorded by the plaintiff to gather evidence of unauthorized use of her bank account. Additionally, these transaction records show that Mr. Thomas Johnson's estate was illegally transferred to the defendant's account and subsequently misused in various ways. My hands clenched quietly. The anger and frustration I had felt were now being laid out as evidence in this courtroom. The verdict was a complete victory for me. The illegally acquired inheritance was returned to me, and a portion of Daniela's assets was seized. The illegal loan applications were all voided, and my credit remained untarnished. As we were about to leave the courtroom, Daniela shouted at me, "This is unfair. I was just trying to secure a future for Brittany." Brittany stood up abruptly, kicking her chair. "Why does Jessica get everything? I've had struggles too." "Jessica, please, forgive us. You're misunderstanding. I was just trying to do what's best for the family," Daniela pleaded. I couldn't help but scoff. "The best." I looked at her intensely. "Your idea of best was to use my name without permission, embezzle my inheritance, and exploit my life. But you wouldn't suffer, right? You have a husband, and you live a wealthy life." Daniela's voice grew shrill. "We're family, so helping each other is natural." I shook my head quietly. "You are not family. A real family doesn't deceive and exploit one another. You just conveniently use the word, family, for your own desires. I will never forget how you treated me," I said calmly, staring them down. Then, I added just one more thing. "Get out of my life." They gasped, and the next moment, they glared at me, shaking with anger and frustration. But no matter what they said, my resolve would not be shaken. Now that everything was out in the open, they were nothing more than fraudsters. I stepped outside the courthouse with William. "It's over," William muttered quietly. I nodded slightly, looking up at the blue sky. "No, it's just the beginning. I had fought to protect my life and my family, and I had finally reclaimed everything. From now on, I would no longer be swayed by them. I was just going to move forward with my family into the future." After the trial ended, I felt truly liberated. Legally, Daniela was completely cut off from me, severing all ties. Everything was over, and I had finally gained my freedom. Later, Brittany attempted to study abroad, but due to the assets Daniela had lost, she lacked the necessary funds and ultimately couldn't go anywhere. All that remained for them was a significant amount of debt. Meanwhile, I was starting a new life with my husband William and child. The burdens that had once been imposed on me by my family were gone, and I had regained a life that felt true to myself. Even while busy with childcare, I began to seriously engage in a business I had always been interested in, an online shop that I could manage at my own pace while raising a child. I started by selling handmade accessories and childcare goods. I focused on the quality and design of my products and used Instagram and blogs to connect with many followers who empathized with my business approach while parenting. Leveraging my own parenting experiences, I carefully selected items that were genuinely useful and products that made life easier for busy mothers, gradually building trust through word of mouth. As a result, my online shop sales steadily increased, and I established a new lifestyle that balanced work and parenting. It wasn't easy, but with my husband Williams's full support, I was able to continue both parenting and my work without having to give up either. Having overcome my past struggles, I now appreciate my fulfilling days even more profoundly. One day, while enjoying a peaceful time in the park with my family, I quietly vowed to myself, "I will never let anyone take my life from me again." I smiled with conviction, feeling no more trauma or anxiety inside. The future holds limitless possibilities, and I am confident that I can face any challenge,